Come closer, children, and listen carefully, for tonight, beneath the quiet sky and the watchful baobab trees, a story will be told. A story of wisdom, a story of choices, and a lesson that every heart must learn. Long ago, in a quiet village surrounded by tall baobab trees, there lived a boy who believed he knew everything. The village was peaceful. Every morning the sun rose slowly over the huts, and the villagers began their daily work. Women carried baskets to the farms. Children ran along the dusty paths, laughing and playing, and the elders gathered under the great baobab tree to share stories and wisdom. In that village, the elders were respected because they had walked many paths in life. But there was one boy who did not believe their wisdom. The boy thought the elders were slow, old, and afraid of the world. Whenever they spoke, he laughed. Whenever advice was given, he ignored it. The villagers often shook their heads and said quietly, "Pride can lead a person into darkness." But the boy never listened. One evening, as the sun was slowly sinking behind the hills, the oldest man in the village called the boy. The old man had a long gray beard and carried a wooden walking stick. He looked at the boy kindly and said, "My son, never enter the forest after sunset. The forest has many paths, and some of them do not lead home." But the boy laughed loudly. "Old man," he said proudly, "I am not afraid of trees." Some villagers nearby heard his words. They looked at each other in silence. They knew pride can sometimes blind a person. That same evening, as the sky turned orange and the shadows grew long, the boy decided to prove everyone wrong. He walked toward the forest alone. Behind him, the old man watched quietly and whispered, "Pride often walks faster than wisdom." At first, the forest path was easy to follow. Birds were singing in the branches above him. The wind moved softly through the leaves. The boy walked confidently, smiling to himself. But after some time, the path divided into two directions. The boy stopped and looked around. Both paths looked the same. He thought for a moment, then chose one path and continued walking deeper into the forest. Soon the sun disappeared. The forest slowly became darker. The sounds around him began to change. The birds stopped singing. The wind became colder. The boy suddenly felt uneasy. He decided it was time to return home. But when he turned around, the path behind him was no longer clear. The boy tried to find his way back. He walked one direction, but the path led into thick bushes. He tried another direction, but it ended at a rocky hill. Again and again he tried. Each path looked the same. The forest seemed to turn him around every time. The boy began to walk faster. Then he began to run, but the more he tried, the more lost he became. Soon, the night grew cold and silent. The moon rose high above the tall trees. The boy stopped running and sat on a rock. His heart was beating fast. For the first time in his life, he felt truly afraid. And then, the old man's words returned to his mind. The forest has many paths, and some of them do not lead home. The boy lowered his head and whispered quietly, "I should have listened." For a long time, the boy sat there in silence. Then he heard something, a soft sound, the gentle sound of water flowing through the forest. The boy stood up and followed the sound carefully through the dark trees. Soon he found a small stream moving slowly through the forest. The boy suddenly remembered something the elders once said. Streams often lead to villages. So he began to walk along the stream. The journey was long. The forest was dark. Sometimes the boy slipped on wet stones. Sometimes he had to climb over fallen branches. But he kept walking. Hour after hour, he followed the sound of the water. Slowly the night began to pass. And at last, late the next morning, the boy saw something in the distance. Smoke rising into the sky. Cooking fires. The village. The boy had finally found his way home. When he entered the village, the people saw him. His clothes were dirty. His steps were slow. And the proud smile he once had was gone. The old man walked slowly toward him, but this time, The boy spoke first. "Forgive me," he said quietly. "I thought I knew everything." The old man placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "The wise are not those who know everything. The wise are those who are willing to listen." And from that day forward, the boy listened carefully whenever the elders spoke, because sometimes the lessons we refuse to hear are the ones we need the most. And so, my friends, the fire grows quiet and the story comes to an end. But remember, wisdom is not found in knowing everything. Wisdom is found in learning, listening, and walking the right path. Until the fire burns again, this has been Ben the Storyteller.